Good morning. I'm Mark Rajat, patriotic instructor of Lincoln Cushion Camp No. 2, Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War. Today, we mark the 153rd Annual Decoration Day here on this hallowed ground, Arlington National Cemetery. On the 30th of May, 1868, General John A. Logan, Commander-in-Chief of the Grand Army of the Republic, set aside this day to honor the Union war dead. And today, we carry on that tradition on this day to memorialize and honor our war dead. We honor not just those who perished in the service of the Union during the Civil War, but also all those who have fallen in combat throughout our history. Thus, we are privileged to solemnly mark this occasion to honor all soldiers, sailors, and Marines who died to preserve a nation united and to ensure, in President Lincoln's words, a new birth of freedom for all.
Good morning. I'm Carl Garman, Secretary and Treasurer of the Lincoln Cushion Camp No. 2, Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War. Brothers of the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, and friends, once more we pay tribute to our forefathers, love and respect, and within these sacred bounds, to pledge anew our fealty to their memory and the principles for which they fought. With bowed heads, solemn tread, and voices hushed, we meet to remind our people of their duty to the soldiers and sailors who wore the blue, to the flag for which they fought, to the country for which they died. And it is for us to keep green the memories of their heroic service and unselfish sacrifice. May we fully realize the sanctity of this place and hour, and may our conduct give assurance to the sincerity of our purpose and for our earnest appreciation of the duties and responsibilities devolved upon us as sons of Union veterans of the Civil War. Our chaplain, Brother John Higgins, will invoke the divine blessing.
Please bow your heads. Supreme ruler of the universe, God of battles and of peace, we thank thee for this day and for this hour, for this blessed privilege of meeting here as sons of soldiers and sailors to do homage to the nation's dead. We thank thee that in the day of trouble and in the hour of danger, you in your infinite wisdom raised up men who were ready to do battle, and if need be, to die that this country might be preserved. Grant us, we beseech thee, a continuance of thy watchful care. Grant thy blessing on these sacred ceremonies, consecrated as they are, to the memory of the brave and loyal hearts who did stand for the right and did not fear to bare their breasts to a storm of sea in defense of human liberty, a united country, and the brotherhood of man. May we fully realize the sanctity of the place and hour. May our conduct give assurance of the sincerity of our purpose and our earnest appreciation of the duties and responsibilities devolved upon us as sons of the Union veterans of the Civil War, sisters of the Allied orders, and members of patriotic organizations. Bless our country, preserve its integrity, prosper our order. Make it, we pray thee, an instrument of thy hands for the greater good of our country, and to you, and at last gather us with you in the great camp of eternity. Hear and answer, we beseech thee. Amen.
Each year on this hallowed day, the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, Lincoln Cushion Camp No. 2, muster here at Arlington National Cemetery and conduct a ceremony to remember the sacrifice of a Union soldier. But what was it like for a Civil War soldier to visit here after the war? Rufus Dawes was colonel of the 6th Wisconsin and had the opportunity in 1881 to visit Arlington. Dawes had taken a break from his duties as congressman to visit here, where 24 men of the 6th Wisconsin who died under his command during the war had been buried. He shared his experience with his wife. December 18th, 1881. My dear wife, I have today worshipped at the shrine of the dead. I went over to the Arlington Cemetery. It was a beautiful morning, and the familiar scenes so strongly impressed upon me during my young manhood were pleasant. Many times I went over the road, admiring the beautiful city and great white capitol with its unfinished dome, going to hear the great men of that day in Congress. An ambitious imagination then builded castles of the time when I might take my place there. Now at middle age, with enthusiasm sobered by hard fights and hard facts, I ride, not run, with elastic step over the same road. With this ambition at least last realized, and warmth enough left in my heart to enjoy it. My friends and comrades, poor fellows, who followed my enthusiastic leadership in those days, and followed it to the death, which I am by a merciful providence escaped, lie here, 24 of them, on the very spot where our winter camp of 61 and 62 was located. I found every grave and stood beside it with uncovered head. I looked over nearly the full 16,000 headboards to find the 24, but they all died alike, and I was determined to find them all. Poor little Fenton, who put his head above the works at Cold Harbor and got a bullet through his temples, and lived 3 days with his brains out, came fresh as one of my own boys of today. And Levi Pearson, one of the 3 brothers of Company A who died for their country in the 6th Regiment. And Richard Gray, Paul Molitor, Dennis Kelly, Chris Bundy, all young men who fell at my side and under my command. For what they died, I fight a little longer. Over their graves, I get inspiration to stand for all they won in establishing our government upon freedom, equality, justice, liberty, and protection to the humblest.
Thank you for joining us live from Arlington National Cemetery this Decoration Day. We've prepared a few pre-recorded events that will be posted on our Facebook page at 1000 and 1100 hours. The first segment being the posting of General Order Number 11, followed by some personal stories, some family, some of interest. Join us again live at 1200 for the closing of our ceremony and the wreath laying at the tomb of the Civil War unknowns.
We are here at General John Logan's mausoleum, located at the U.S. Soldier and Airman's Home National Cemetery. The Grand Army of the Republic established Decoration Day in 1868. Brother Mark will now officially post the Grand Army of the Republic's order.
Headquarters, Grand Army of the Republic, Washington, D.C., May 5, 1868. General Orders Number 11. 1. The 30th of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, hamlet, churchyard in the land. In this observance, no form or cemetery is prescribed, but posts and comrades will, in their own way, arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect as circumstances may permit. We are organized, comrades, as our regulations tell us, for the purpose, among other things, of preserving and strengthening those kind and fraternal feelings which have bound together the soldiers, sailors, and Marines who united to suppress the late rebellion. What can aid more to assure this result than by cherishing tenderly the memory of our heroic dead who made their breasts a barricade between our country and its foes. Their soldier lives were the revile of freedom to a race in chains, and their deaths the tattoo of rebellious tyranny in arms. We should guard their graves with sacred villages. All that the consecrated wealth and taste of the nation can add to their adornment and security is but a fitting tribute to the memory of her slain defenders. Let no wanton foot tread rudely on such hallowed grounds. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no vandalism of avarice or neglect, no ravages of time, testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten as a people the cost of a free and undivided republic. If other eyes grow dull and other hands slack, and other hearts cold in the solemn trust, ours shall keep it well as long as the life and light, warmth of life remains in us. Let us then, at the time appointed, gather around their sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds above them with choicest flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the dear old flag they saved from dishonor. Let us, the solemn presence, renew our pledges to aid and assist those whom have left among us as sacred charges upon the nation's gratitude, the soldiers and sailors' widow and orphan. 2. It is the purpose of the Commander-in-Chief to inaugurate this observance with the hope that it will be kept up from year to year, while a survivor of the war remains to honor the memory of his departed comrades. He earnestly desires the public press to call attention to this order and lend its friendly aid in bringing to it the notice of comrades in all parts of the country in time for simultaneous compliance therein. 3. Department commanders will use every effort to make this order effective. By command of John A. Logan, Commander-in-Chief.
Thank you for joining us. Our next pre-recorded segment will be in fact us executing General Order Number 11 as we adorn the graves of several Civil War veterans at Arlington National Cemetery and here at the Soldiers and Airmen's National Cemetery. That will be posted very shortly here on our Facebook channel. Thank you very much. Kind of ad-libbed there, but I really Good morning. Brothers from Lincoln Cushion Camp Number 2 are here today to fulfill General Logan's General Order Number 11, which says in part, "Let us then at the time appointed gather around their sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds above them with choicest flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the dear old flag they saved from dishonor." Today, we will be sharing a short story of a few of the soldiers buried here. What better way to perpetuate their memory than sharing their story? Thank you.
Today, I decorate the grave of Private William Henry Chrisman. William Henry Chrisman was born on October 1st, 1844, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania. The Chrisman family moved several times, ending up in Stoddartsville area, Pennsylvania in the Poconos. When Barnabas, William's older brother, went to war and then died in battle, William assumed the responsibility for contributing to their large family, becoming the sole provider. William's father, Jonas, at this time, had a number of physical disabilities, which did not allow him to continue to work. William worked where he could as a laborer, being paid with food provisions and cash. On March 21st, 1864, at the age of 20, William enlisted for 3 years, serving with Company G, 67th Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry. The 67th was on furlough in Philadelphia in late March, coinciding with William's enlistment. With the 30-day furlough ending in April 1864, the 67th was ordered to Washington, D.C. On April 22nd, Private Chrisman was stricken with measles. On April 30th, he was directed by military order to a general hospital and was admitted to Lincoln General Hospital on May 1st, located on Capitol Hill. On May 11th, Private Chrisman died. At this time, Brigadier General Montgomery Meigs, Quartermaster General of the U.S. Army, who was responsible for the burial of soldiers, ordered Arlington Estate to be used for a cemetery. The existing D.C. area national cemeteries, Soldiers Home and Alexandria National Cemeteries, were running out of space. Both closed on the day that burials began at Arlington. On May 13, 1864, Private Chrisman was laid to rest in Arlington burial grounds, becoming the first soldier to be buried in the new cemetery. Arlington officially became a national cemetery on June 15, 1864. Though Private Chrisman never saw battle and died of disease, he did embody that of a true American. He understood his responsibilities, had respect and love for family, one who loved his country, and volunteered to put his life on the line for both. William Henry Chrisman.
Today, I decorate the grave of my cousin Joseph Plummer. When Joseph Bennett Plummer was born on November 15, 1816, in Bear, Massachusetts, his father, Alpheus, was 42 and his mother, Lydia, was 39. He had one son and one daughter with Francis Clark. He taught school for many years. In 1837, he received an appointment to the United States Military Academy and graduated in 1841. He received a brevet rank of second lieutenant in the 1st U.S. Infantry and served on garrison duty. He missed the first year of the Mexican-American War due to sickness. Joseph did quartermaster duty on the Texas frontier from 1848 until 1861. In 1852, he was promoted to a captain in the 1st U.S. Infantry. He was wounded at the Battle of Wilson's Creek while commanding a battalion of regulars. Plummer was then commissioned as colonel of the 11th Missouri Volunteers in September of 1861 and assigned command of the post at Cape Girardeau, Missouri, a position he filled until March 1862. Interestingly, while a colonel of the 11th Missouri, my second great-granduncle, Raoul Plummer, also served with him. Joseph was appointed as a brigadier general, U.S. Volunteers on March 11, 1862, and in April 1862, Plummer was promoted to major of the 8th U.S. Infantry in the regular army. Later, Plummer commanded the 5th Division of Pope's Army in New Madrid and the Island No. 10 campaign. He subsequently commanded a brigade of Stanley's division at Corinth and died in camp at Corinth on August 9, 1862, almost exactly 1 year after the battle at Wilson's Creek. He died from lingering effects of his wounds and prolonged exposure in the field. Joseph Bennett Plummer.
Today, I decorate the grave of my great-great-grandfather and great-great-grandmother, John Ray and Mary Ray. John Laird Ray was born in Westchester County, New York on October 15, 1840. He was a first-generation American. Both of John's parents were born in Scotland sometime between 1800 and 1820. He left the county when still a youth, relocating to Cincinnati, Ohio, where he engaged in mercantile pursuits. When the Civil War began in 1861, John, at the age of 20, enlisted in the Union Army at Cincinnati on April 20th, 1861 for 3 months. June 18th, he extended his enlistment for a 3-year period. He was assigned as a private to Company I of the 6th Regiment of the Ohio Infantry. On September 11th, 1861, near Elkwater, Virginia, now located in West Virginia, he was captured by Confederate soldiers while he was on picket duty at Stewart's Run at Cheat Mountain. The Battle of Cheat Mountain took place from September 12th through 15th, 1861. To note, it was the first battle of the Civil War in which Robert E. Lee led his troops to combat. A total of 61 Union troops were taken prisoner. They were taken to Libby Prison, located in Richmond, Virginia. In November 1861, John was sent to a prison camp at Tuscaloosa, Alabama. July 1862, he was released in a prisoner exchange, spending 9 months as a prisoner of war. He returned to Ohio and was assigned duty as a clerk in the military commander's office in Columbus in Company A, 1st Regiment of Paroled Prisoners, and then was assigned as a clerk in the office of the superintendent of the Ohio Volunteer Recruiting Services, also in Columbus. On June 17, 1864, at the expiration of his 3-year term of service, he was discharged from the Army. While he was stationed in Columbus, he met Mary Monahan. Mary was born on March 19, 1842, in County Kerry, Ireland. Mary's parents, John and Ellen Monahan, along with Mary's sister, Julia, migrated to the United States sometime between 1851 and 1853. Where the Monahans first settled when they arrived in the United States is not known. Neither is it known when the family settled in Columbus, Ohio. John and Mary married in Columbus on March 29, 1863. Late 1868, John was transferred to Washington, D.C. However, Mary remained in Columbus, Ohio until approximately 1862, when she then followed John to D.C. Over the course of 20 years, they became parents of 8 children. On December 17, 1872, John and Mary welcomed their 4th child, Nellie Ray, my great-grandmother. John and Mary and their family continued to be residents of Washington throughout the remainder of their lives. During these years, John was employed in various federal government agencies, including the War Department, the Pension Bureau, the Census Bureau, and the Surgeon General's office. His last position, he served as a clerk in the Adjutant General's office of the War Department. On November 21st, 1907, at the age of 67 years, at his apartment in Northwest D.C., where they had recently moved, he died of a cerebral hemorrhage. Mary died March 2nd, 1933, when she was 91 years old. On August 26, 2018, the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, Lincoln Cushing Camp No. 2, held a headstone dedication ceremony for John and Mary. The headstone was replaced. The previous headstone had misspelled John's name, and Mary's name was never added to the back, as is typical in multiple burials in the same plot. Mary was essentially buried in an unmarked grave for 85 years, although Arlington National Cemetery records show otherwise. John Laird Ray. Mary Ray.
Today,
I decorate the grave of my cousin, Levi Pearson. When Levi Pearson was born on December 12, 1832, his father Bailey was 25 and his mother Jane was 24. He married Mary Hill on February 13, 1859 in Hillsboro, Wisconsin. They had 2 children during their marriage. Levi Pearson enlisted May 10, 1861 at the age of 28 as a private with Company I, 6th Wisconsin Infantry. Levi was wounded during the Battle of Jerusalem Plank Road on June 21, 1864, and died July 21, 1864 from those wounds. Levi had 4 other brothers in the Civil War. 3 served with him in the 6th Wisconsin. None of them would return home from the war. Levi Pearson. Today, I decorate the grave of my cousin, George Robbins. When George W. Robbins was born on January 2, 1840, in New York, his father, William, was 40 and his mother, Margaret, was 36. He had 8 brothers and 3 sisters. George Robbins enlisted May 11, 1861 at Glendale, Wisconsin at the age of 21 as a private with Company I, 6th Wisconsin Infantry. George was wounded at the Battle of Bronner Farm on August 28, 1862 and taken prisoner. He was paroled on September 6, 1862. George died at the Warehouse Hospital, Georgetown, D.C. on September 21, 1862 from blood poisoning from the wounds that he had received in action at Bronner Farm. He is buried here at the U.S. Soldier and Airman's Home National Cemetery. And unlike a lot of my Civil War relatives, I actually do have a pre-war picture of George. And I can't help but noticing how sad he looks in that. George Robbins.
Today, I decorate the grave of James Parks. James Parks was born March 19, 1843 as a slave to George Washington Parke Custis. George's father, John Parke Custis, was the stepson of George Washington. George had inherited from his father a plantation in what is now Arlington, Virginia, where high on top of a hill overlooking the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., he built the mansion Arlington House, a tribute to George Washington. Under the terms of his will, when George died in 1857, James was free. James continued to live on the estate when Secretary of War Edwin Stanton signed the orders designated the estate as a military burial ground. James served in the U.S. Army from 1861 to 1929 by working as a gravedigger and maintenance man for the cemetery. The first graves in Arlington National Cemetery were dug by James. Prior to his death, James helped historians by giving specific locations for wells, springs, slaves' quarters, the slave cemetery, dance pavilion, old roads, ice house, blacksmith shop, and kitchens that existed prior to the establishment of the cemetery. James left behind one of the few slave accounts on record from which much of the restoration of Arlington House was based. His testimony provided a complete record of the people who inhabited the plantation, the slaves, and the Custis Lee family. James Parks died on August 21st, 1929. The then Secretary of War, Dwight Davis, granted special permission for James to be buried at Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors. James Parks is the only person buried in Arlington National Cemetery who was born on the property. James Parks. Thank you for joining us today. It is our earnest hope that you too can take the time and visit your local cemetery. Odds are high there will be a veteran buried there. You can help keep up their memory alive and adorn their graves with the choicest flowers of springtime, just as General Logan ordered. Welcome back. I am Mark Rajat, Patriotic Instructor of Lincoln Cushion Camp Number 2, Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War. We are at the Tomb of the Civil War Unknowns, and we will continue our ceremony with the wreath laying. Brother John will say the benediction.
God of battles and of peace, ruler of the destinies of countries, in this silent camping ground of the dead, we come before you, seeking your blessings as we honor the memories of the fallen, resting here in their eternal bivouac. Grant that we may be ever keep this day, and never let this place or their memories be forgotten. May the fallen heroes from all our nation's wars, from the Revolution to the ongoing war on terror, be always in our prayer and thoughts, and that the tables of love and of memory be forever preserved. We hope that it will be your will that we may all meet before your throne, and to your name shall we ascribe praise both now and forever. Amen.
On behalf of the entire Lincoln Cushion Camp Number 2, Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, we thank you for attending our Grand Army of the Republic Decoration Day ceremony. If you can today, go out and visit your local cemetery, find a Civil War veteran, and join us in decorating their graves.